And we're back. So I believe this is the fourth or third video I'm putting out. Again, I'm kind of losing track of the numbers. The Johnny one is already up, and the Potemkin one should be up by the time this one's watched. Probably the Testament one as well. Now we're going over the character I play. Obviously, I have Pep here. Say hi, Pep.
That's good.
So, yeah, no, just kind of brought on a second voice just to kind of go through, like, more in depth in the changes. See how other perspective of the changes, because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of doomer on the changes, but yeah, I wanted to see your perspective and kind of talk about it a bit. I guess the biggest change was the well, actually, let me ask you, what do you think was the most glaring change that you saw when you first read the notes for Zato?
Like the most impactful overall.
Yeah, the one that you think mattered the most.
I think it's definitely the decrease of Pierce's startup.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty like defining, because previously it was the case that you only got the. I don't think I can put it to count it.
Oh, I could just mess it up.
Yeah. Oh, right, yeah. Because like previously you only got this when they were crouching.
Yeah.
So it kind of defined a lot of matchups for Zato in the sense of if a character was like running at you and pressing crouching buttons, your risk reward was a lot better because you got a full combo off of it compared to just getting kind of a pressure sequence off of it, which was still strong, but it wasn't the same as getting like a full combo into like corner carry. So yeah, so I think that's definitely a pretty big buff. It also buffed the different frame gaps that he had. Like, so for example, previously if I normal hit you with 2S and I did Pierce, it's a 5-frame gap. So you would have been able to trade with it with a 5-frame, even on hit. No one did it, but you could. But now, because it's decreased 1-frame startup, instead it's a 4-frame gap. So even if you mash after 2S hit, you like it's a frame trap basically.
Gotcha.
So I think that's also a buff. So like it slightly improved his RPS off of certain normals with Pierce, but I think it's most impactful off of 2S because like with 5H it went from 3 frames to 2 frames, which doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
And then like the gap from doing like P buttons into Pierce or like K button into Pierce, like it's still so big that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I think it's mainly impactful off of his S buttons.
Yeah. I was this change was actually it was huge. When I first saw someone post about it, I was like, oh shit, like dude, that's like, yo, that's a really nice change. It's just unfortunately I feel like it wasn't enough, but I guess we can kind of talk about later on how like all these changes wrapped around weren't enough. But the good side of things was it was a good change. It was nice. It's nice to have when it does work. But yeah, moving on, the Eddie movement speed. So I know that it seems like now they're kind of going in the direction with Zato, and we'll get into the Eddie swap later. But at least from my point of view, I feel like they're trying to make it more of like a Eddie footsies type thing, and then you want to take advantage of that with the swap. Me personally, again, we'll kind of get into the Eddie swap later. I'll talk about more how I feel, but the Eddie movement speed by itself is a nice change because there are some combos where it does help, like when you end up doing a combo and you need Eddie to catch up, and let's say he's not there, it's basically always gonna work. So it is a nice change. But I also wish that they buffed the backwards speed as well. I don't know why they only did the forward speed, but I think the backward speed would have been nice as well. I'm not sure if that would have been maybe they thought it was too strong, or maybe they just forgot about it. I don't know, but how do you feel about the movement speed change?
Yeah, so like you said, so in terms of combos, it definitely improves the consistency of some things, because especially when you're doing like, I'm trying to think of an example, but like these types of, I'll just do like, so like these types of,
oh, I'm sorry, I was.
So like these types of combos.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've done this. Like just Eddie moving that fast, like just increases the overall consistency of it, which is nice. It's also the case so just hold down back. Because like previously when you're doing like extended sequences like this, it could be kind of hard to like move Eddie quick enough to get like an actual like good setup. As you were running in behind him. But now because of like the increased movement speed, like, oh, I fucked it up, but like you can get Eddie a lot closer to Zato from a mid-screen situation, which like makes his offense from those situations better, which is nice. But yeah, and I agree with your point that because when Zato was originally like heavily nerfed in season 3, they made the like explicit statement that they wanted Zato to be like a weak character without Eddie.
Yeah.
And so it seems like they don't want to go back on that design, and so as a result, they tried to like improve Eddie.
Yeah.
the issue is in the context of Strive, it's way too hard to keep Eddie alive. Like his hurt box is super big. A lot of characters have like really low risk ways to try and contest him, and your reward for like outfootseeing them with Eddie is just not consistent enough in most situations.
Yeah, I asked Gobo about it as well. I'll put the message on the screen, but I basically asked Gobo about it as well, and he basically said the same thing. But he thinks overall Zato is stronger, which I guess
that was a low bar.
I guess, but one of the biggest changes, I guess, and this is kind of the meme change, right? Obviously, with Break the Law gone, they wanted to. Zato in a lot of matchups was he needed to bait your burst. Like he needs to bait your burst. And what surprised me the most is because I think outside, I mean, I'm not sure if you talk to like, you know, more people who play the game casually, but like outside of people who didn't really like kind of saw Zato at a glance and were like, oh, well, easy fix, just make Break the Law back, like just bring Break the Law back and he'll be good. Just break the law, they're gonna revert it, blah blah, revert, and they didn't. And I'm very surprised that they're doubling down on they don't want that back. They want Eddie, obviously the new change from the next set of notes. The basically Eddie Gage will refill from where he was destroyed by Burst or YRC, which is very nice. But my gripe with it is, like how you were saying, it seems like Eddie's reward for outfooting someone with Eddie, one, it's very uncommon in a lot of matchups you play, so you don't even get the chance to use it. And even when you do, the reward is pretty low. So it feels like I don't know, it's obviously a red refill, right? When Eddie comes back, like, you know, you get burst Eddie comes back. It just seems like before last patch, when you would burst Zato, he would get put in, depending on the matchup, which was most of them, you would get put in a unwinnable situation. Like it felt, a lot of the matchups felt unwinnable. Like it was like, okay, well, even if I get a knockdown, how am I supposed to, like, even if I recover from getting bursted, what do I do, right? So I guess it puts them now in, like, unwinnable situation to now, like, hard to win situation, I guess. So it feels nice, but it just isn't enough with how Zato, I mean, with how he's built in this game, with how they want him to play with these buffs. It doesn't feel, I would just prefer if I could just bait your burst, right? It doesn't feel as good as how Break the Law was before, but I'm curious on your thoughts on the new way Eddie interacts with Burst and YRC.
Yeah, maybe to also comment on the Break the Law thing briefly. I also think it's kind of weird that they didn't bring it back, but I think they're trying to move away from like, and they did this from like the transition from like old Guilty Gears to Strive, in that there's a lot less like option selects in Strive for Burst. Like they still exist, but they're much less common. Yeah. And even more so now that Burst hits full screen. So I think maybe one reason they didn't bring it back is because they wanted to keep that trend of like reducing the amount of option selects and combos. But yeah, like as you said, like in the previous patch, like if they bursted you and you had no Eddie, like you were fucked. Because the way the resources work in this game is like, Zato's not very good at taking advantage of meter, especially when he doesn't have Eddie. Yeah. Whereas a lot of other characters get a lot more value out of it. So them just like going back to neutral and having like however much meter is really bad for Zato, because you just get out risk rewarded on like everything.
Yeah.
And I really don't think it helped that much, because even in situations where there are a lot of situations where like, say for example you're outpushing them with Eddie and then like you somehow like get a combo to start, you've already spent like 50 to 75% of your Eddie gauge. So if they burst you, they're sending you back to full screen with like that percentage gone, and it's still in red regen. And because the recharge time is still so long, like it's still like a really, really bad situation. Like it's not as bad, but like it's still pretty unlikely you're gonna be in a good situation.
Yeah. What do you think in terms? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because also when you like bait bursts, it's usually still not enough for the combo for Eddie to regen back by the end of the combo. Because like before, when Zato baited your burst, even if, I mean like pre-season 3, even if Eddie died, like generally speaking, you had enough time to like do like the close slash jump T type combos and build Eddie back by the time it was over. But now you still can't do that. So it really kind of hurts the consistency of the reward he even gets for baiting bursts, which he's not good at anyway because he has a lot of guaranteed points.
I think that so what do you still think that Zato like is the worst character versus burst in the game?
Generally speaking, yes. Contextually, I think Asuka can they can burst you into like a checkmate situation if you have bad cards, but the likelihood of that happening is like it's dependent on RNG, and it's like it's not that likely to happen. It can happen, but it's like the extreme end of it. Whereas Zato, it's like it's very consistently a bad situation. So I think he's still like the worst character against burst in the game, which is funny because before season 3 he was like
the best.
he was the best. He had a lot of option selects, he had a lot of just like burst safe combos, but now you just don't have access to that, and there's really nothing you can do outside of like super hard reads like RCing your normals, but like that's not a sustainable game plan.
I guess we'll go into, I'll save the Eddie swap for last, so let me ask you, no more hard knockdown on Wild Assault wall break, so how do you think that affects Zato?
I'm still because like to me I don't think it's net positive. I think it's either net neutral or net negative overall for him, because like it's good for him in the sense that when he gets hit by other characters, you're put in like less of a checkmate situation from getting knocked down, because like one, your defense is terrible and you have a really low life, so you got like 2 to 3 touched off like everything. But his weakness now is that you do need the meter to wall break with super to get the knockdown, because like his offense is kind of like the only thing he really has left. That said, they did buff the the burst regen a little bit, in the sense that like doing wall splat stuff is like a little more viable now because of like the reduced burst gain. But it's still not as good as before. And in the broader context, the reason I think it's probably a net negative for him is like a lot of characters against Zato, like we were talking about his neutral earlier, they don't need the knockdown to be in like a really, really advantageous situation in neutral, because Zato just can't use his resources well in neutral compared to other characters. Like if you take like Soul, for example, in the previous patch, if Soul like did a combo, you know, he spent Wild Assault, like he didn't have 50 meter, let's just say he had like 40 meter. If he had Wild Assault, he'd just spend it for the hard knockdown, then he makes his job and he'd probably die. Cool. Okay, so they removed Wild Assault knockdown. So what's the situation now? Well, he just wall breaks you, and then he's in positive bonus, where he's about to get 50 meter, and you have to deal with guessing between Bandit and Vortex RC, which is like, you're not winning that interaction either. And there are a lot of characters in the game who really take advantage of like that positive neutral skip type of meta, and so as a result, I think Zato still ends up getting the short end of the stick just because he can't do that as well.
I definitely agree with that. I think I'm currently on the side where I think it was a negative. I believe from how, so I mean obviously everyone plays Zato different, but from how I viewed Zato last patch, he was, to me, in my eyes, like he didn't do like the most damage, but like you said, one of the remaining things he had left was his offense. And I believe that it was kind of like all right, I need to get lucky once, and I need to pray that I'm fighting a bum and I can just like, they can't block my character, right? And kind of steamroll from there. And the idea was to kind of keep it going. Obviously, burst was a pain to deal with, but a lot of people didn't even know how to burst correctly versus the character. So in my eyes, he was kind of like a steamroll character. And the fact that that's gone is, like, I understand they're giving him the, like, they want to make his numbers better, like, in neutral. I think they want to make his reward better with the, obviously the Pierce change to make his combos better and whatnot. And, they kind of want to go back to that Zato and Happy Chaos having that, like, exclusive win con where, like, they can break the wall off different hits that other characters can't and, get that sword super in the, kind of steamroll, but it just doesn't feel he's not nearly at this, he doesn't have the tools, nor is he nearly at the same power level as before, to the point where it's as strong as it used to be, that it just kind of feels like he's just, I don't know, it just feels like he doesn't work with the new change, and it's,
especially since they seem to be pushing more towards, like, like really taking advantage of positive bonus, because positive bonus is like one of the most broken mechanics that like ever put in Guilty Gear. And so like if your choice a lot of the time currently is between, do I break the wall to get positive, or do I break the wall to try and just do more Oki? Like the fact you have to make that decision to begin with is not great. Other characters do have to make the decision too sometimes, but with Zato, it's like it's much more consequential, because those types of situations just come up a lot more. Because you look at your meter, I'm like, I don't have 50 meter, and they do have 50 meters. So it's like, okay, do I want to do offense and try to guess on their YRC, or do I want to send them back to neutral in the other stage with like a neutral skip? So it's just, yeah, I really don't, yeah, like you said, I don't think he meshes with the system very well currently.
Where would you rank Zato in terms of users of Blue Wild Assault now?
So who are the Blue Wild Assault characters? It's Zato, Milia, Elfeld.
There's Elfeld, Slayer, Milia, Zato, Bridget, Jacko, Happy Chaos, Asuka, yes. Biken, yes.
I think he's one of the better users of it, just because like being able to get into the Eddy string is pretty strong. The main issue is that it's dependent on, because like the most consistent way to get a Blue Wild Assault is to make them block a normal, but getting into that position can be kind of hard with Zato compared to the other characters.
Yeah.
So I definitely think he uses it better than like Milia, for example, especially now that there's no like hard wall break knockdown, or sorry, hard knockdown off wall break.
Yeah. Also Faust and
like,
Abba. We forgot those characters.
Oh yeah, Faust and Abba, yeah. But yeah, no, I think he's definitely like one of the better users of it, just because like his on block situation is still pretty strong, but it's like all the things that come after that which just make him not a very good character, even though he uses the mechanic like reasonably well.
Yeah, I think as well, so like the burst changes you mentioned earlier, like getting obviously less burst gain over time, and less burst gain on wall slumps and wall stick and wall break. I think it's good, because obviously Zato is terrible versus burst, like we said, but at the same time, Zato he gets deleted so fast that I guess it's a buff, because I guess you weren't like tankier characters where, you got 2 or 3 bursts depending on the character you were playing. You kind of only got 1, so it feels like at least, good. Like, even with Zato, it's not like, oh, well, I don't get as much burst, so yeah, I'm low health. You were dying anyways, right? So I guess it's kind of good having the rest of the cast kind of in your same boat, where they're not getting infinite amount of burst, especially versus Zato. So I think the burst change overall, like specifically speaking, the burst gain was a buff. But like everything else with burst, like Wild Assault and shit, like I think that shit is like a nerf, like we said.
Yeah.
And then I guess we could tackle the elephant in the room, the Eddy swap. Okay, this move, I don't. My thoughts on it personally, I don't understand it. I'm gonna be honest. I think it makes me more upset that they are going in the direction of trying to make this move good instead of buffing the other areas of him. I think this move, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a move from Plus R, correct?
I think so.
I believe it was. And I don't know, the direction they're going with it, I think the idea of making it so you can use it while the opponent is in block stun, and making it so that it's not a swap but more of a teleport, I think it's good. And I've seen some like mix up things with it. I've seen some combo things with it. I'm personally just not a fan. I think it's too weak for the buffs and the like that he needs to be a good character. So I would like to see them buff other areas of him instead of trying to focus on him like this thing that no one is still going to use. But I mean, I guess it has its uses. I'm just not personally a big fan of it. So I'm curious on your thoughts and if you think maybe there's some strengths out there for this move.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a similar position, because I've seen like the clips that have like the combos and the mix-ups, and it's like, yeah, it's cool, but like that wasn't exactly his problem.
Yeah.
And like in the context of using it in neutral, like for quite a few, that like I think the only move it really significantly changes the situation for is with drills.
Yeah.
Because like with Frog, you were so plus anyway that just dashing up gives you like essentially the same frame advantage. So like it doesn't matter. Like with drills, it gives you the opportunity to like sandwich them sometimes in situations you wouldn't be able to otherwise. But like besides that, I just don't think it's consistent enough of a tool to make a difference in most matchups.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't found a use for it yet. I don't think I've seen anyone find a use, like an actual like in-game use for it versus better players for it yet. I know obviously you have Gobo talking on Twitter how the move is cracked and stuff, but I need to, I don't know. He said he's possibly gonna enter a tournament soon, so maybe he'll show us something that we don't know. But as far as that, I don't know. I wish again they like it wasn't his like it doesn't solve any of his problems. So I wish he kind of, you know, I wish they went other direction. But what about for you? Do you think he's overall stronger, or do you think he's overall weaker? Like, I mean, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I definitely think he's stronger than he was. Like again, like you said earlier, it's a really low bar, and also like I think generally speaking, the overall power level of the game went down just because Wild Assault was such a broken mechanic, and it still is, honestly.
Yeah.
So like, you know, they brought him up a little bit and others like down a little bit, but like I think he's still definitely like probably the worst character.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing with the patch is like, you know, because the main changes system mechanics wise were the nerf to Wild Assault and then the nerf to DPRC. Zato, in my opinion, benefited a lot less from the existence of DPRC being removed because he was one of the characters who didn't really have to deal with it that much to begin with.
Yeah.
Because on your Oki, you had DP safe Oki for like every situation. And the only context where you had to be careful of DP is when you weren't able to keep like your lock string pressure like super tight. Like when you're trying to do like pierce staggers and stuff like that. So the DPRC change was like a really big buff for like the standard strike throw characters, but for Zato it didn't really do much because like it doesn't really change the situations and how you bait DPs to begin with. So even though that was like a massive change for like a lot of other parts of the game, it didn't really help Zato that much in my opinion. So that's also one reason why I don't think he improved as much as we would have liked him to.
Yeah, like you said, the bar was very low. Like, even if he got better, it was like a step, right? Like it wasn't. It's not like he was moving mountains with this patch, right? Yeah, it's funny because I'm thinking of all the other videos I've made for you know, these, you know, this type of video where you know, I've interviewed like the Testament player and Johnny, and it's like, yeah, well, I think that character got better. You know, I think they're in the bubble with the other characters. Like, nah, Zato, like, nah, he's straight shit still. It's kind of sad to talk about because it's like, dang, like I guess we all would have wished for some improvement, especially with how the devs were talking about like wanting to make him better. But
I looked Katano in the eye at the Archrival finals because we were in like a there was like an after party dinner.
Yeah.
And the devs were talking to the players, and he was like, yeah, like the main things we know people don't like are like White Wall Assault,
deflect shield input.
Yeah, deflect shield input, and Zato being weak. And we're like, okay, bet. So that means he's gonna get like buffs, right? Like good buffs.
Oh my gosh.
So that just means he clearly had a different vision in mind when he was telling us that.
I think one of the kind of like an off-topic thing that I wanted to ask, because this is I think I've been asked this question like a million times. If you were to take Zato from when he was good, right? Obviously the Eddie timer and whatnot. Like if he were to have his old Eddie timer and you were to put him in this state of the game, where do you think? How much do you think that would affect him?
Assuming we keep the things like burst, splat, regen, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Because the reason I ask is because as it is now, I don't think Zato, and again, this is just me, I don't think Zato can be good unless this new move is like it needs to be better than Ino's MLA at like on like the release of it. Like it needs to like, you want to do a combo, use the new move. You want to do pressure, new move. You want to do this, new move. Like I'm like every box like that Zato has to check to play the game better run through this new move. Like it better be the best move in the game to make this character like work if they're gonna keep the Eddie timer how it is, or they fix the Eddie timer, because I don't believe we can start talking about him winning matchups and him doing well and being a solo character again at events until they do one of those two things. And it's realistically, from how it's looking, gonna be the new move, which
Yeah,
I don't know what it could be, but
yeah, I mean, with the timer thing, it's like you could have you can definitely make the argument in season 2 and prior that, you know, the gauge refilled too quickly for how decent Zato's keep away was. Like he wasn't like his keep away wasn't like that good, but he had decent tools for like walling you out or like stalling for time between flight and just like his normals with 2S.
Yeah.
But currently we just don't like the amount of effort it takes to regain Eddie back after you lose him, with how easy it is to lose him in the first place, just like doesn't really make sense. But like I don't know how you fix that without making Zato himself stronger for those stalling tools, which they said they don't want to do. So it's I don't really know what their plan is, because like you can maybe give like, in terms of stalling tools, if you want to make Zato solo better, like you could give him back hard knockdown on Invite Hell.
I've been saying I've been preaching this for the longest, bro. Like ever since the nerfs, I was like, yo, like, and it's funny enough because I believe I can't remember if it was you or Sechi. I asked one of you guys. I was like, so how would that change look? I think it was Sechi. He goes, well, good. Sechi said, oh well, good players. Something like, good players aren't really getting hit by Invite Hell to begin with. So I prefer for it to be faster and work from combos from P normals and S normals more consistently than it would to actually hard knockdown.
Yeah, I mean the hard knockdown thing is more so just for like neutral, like in interact, because like the thing is, if Zato counter hits you with 2S when he doesn't have Eddie, you don't care. Like because he doesn't get a sequence off of counter hitting you with 2S. He doesn't even get to like run up and strike throw you unless he hits you like point blank with 2S, which isn't gonna happen. So yeah, but like again, like I really don't know how you fix him at this point, because I think the game has shifted so much from like what its original design was that Zato just doesn't really fit in that anymore. Because like before he was like there was a lot of good offense in the game in season 2 prior, but like his offense was like by far the best, I think. Just in terms of like the options, as well as like the options, the burst safety, the damage. Like I think it was even like significantly better than HC, even though HC was completely broken for his own reasons. But just in terms of offense, Zato's was like his offense was insane, right? But now with like Wild Assault, you have so many characters that just have a lot of ways to enforce their pressure in a way that when you guess wrong, you die. So Zato's strength of having like really overbearing offense just doesn't matter as much anymore, which I think it really hurts him in the context of the whole cast.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, like we said, his offense is like the good remaining thing he has. So it being like less like special to him is definitely something where it's just, we gotta call that just bad, right? Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see the direction they go. Again, it's a lot of stuff can happen, especially with a new move on the horizon. It's I mean, one of the jokes I always say is they're taking so long with making the characters come, like the newer characters come out and the new moves coming out, right? The reason we're not getting them now is like, you know, the characters that are getting the new moves like Nago, Leo, Soul Kai, like Chip, like Zato, like they're like, oh, what the fuck? Like, how do we balance this? Like, what do we give these characters, right? So it's like, so it's gonna be interesting. Again, I think I believe I was in Leffen's chat when I told him the idea of like, you know, the new move being like this perfect thing, and he's like, yo, like, but what would that look like? It doesn't exist, right? Like, give it up.
No
it's
one,
like
no one knows.
it's like, you know, but and it's also hard to talk about balancing him because, like you said, they want Zato to be weaker solo, so that makes it. So it gives me the vibe that it's gonna be a new move with Eddie, but you can't have another Eddie move because you won't be able to negative edge into it. So
no, you can. Because in the old games, he actually had an Eddie move for every button on the stick, but in Strive, he doesn't have one on the dust button.
Well, yeah, so but you can't do that because correct me if I'm wrong, but because it partly charged dust, right? Or just regular dust?
No. Because like in Xrd, there wasn't charge dust per se, but like it had this. It was a similar issue, but basically the idea is like you can charge a dust input by, or sorry, you can start negative edging a dust input by like pressing it behind Zato doing something else so that you don't get a charge dust. Because like relatively speaking, in Strive, Zato's negative edge sequences are not hard at all. Like they're really simple. But in like Xrd and Plus R, you have to do like quite a lot of like button swapping in terms of like what you're holding and when you hold it. To make the sequences you want. So I could maybe see them putting something on that, like for a new Eddie move, because like I don't know what else they're planning to do.
Yeah, it's really hard to talk about.
Because like their only option at this point is to juice the fuck out of Eddie, but like, so like you either have to improve Eddie's existing moves, which like I don't even know if I'd want to see, because I always thought Eddie's like the way they made Eddie work was like really like pretty good game design in terms of like. Because it had like a decent amount of counterplay. Every like Eddie move had like a pretty specific purpose that, you know, you had to figure out how to use, and it had a lot of different applications and different matchups. So I don't know if they'd go the route of just like making everything a lot better, or like giving a new move. Like we don't know.
Especially the idea of thinking about Zato having a move by himself, like not even dealing with Eddie, but just like him having it. It's like Zato, like what would he do? Like you know. Like,
yeah,
I mean, throw a fireball at you, like, you know?
Yeah, no, because, like, I mean, the one thing, like, one of the things missing from his kit is, like, he doesn't really have, like, a good pressure reset option outside of, like, just stagger and close slash. So maybe they could give him something with that, but again, it goes back to the issue of they don't want to buff solo Zato. So like,
yeah, so that it's so hard. Yeah, once I heard them say like in the notes they don't want solo Zato to be like, you know, they obviously nerfed them because they don't want solo Zato to be good. I started thinking like, okay, well, you know, like once I got to the once people realized this character was useless, I was like, okay, well he's gonna get buffed, but how? Like, you know, so. It's there's a lot they can do. We'll have to see. Hopefully October.
We have no choice. Yeah,
we have no choice. No choice but to wait until October when Dizzy comes out. And hopefully they didn't officially say, but I'm gonna guess the new moves, because I'm gonna guess that season 4 officially starts with the new moves in Dizzy. So we'll have to see.
It'd be like, yeah, the timeline would be like absurd if they didn't put the new moves in that patch, because like Arc Reba was like pretty soon after it. So
yeah, and not even that, you would have to put they would have to come with a patch, because surely you're not just gonna give Nago a new move and then just like not nerf like some part of his kit, right? You know, so I'm pretty sure it'll come with the big patch coming. You know, one of the ideas that I've always been told for like a new Zato move would be like, oh well, what if he has a way to recharge Eddie himself, or what if he lays like some sort of like trap on the ground or something like that? So I don't know, maybe. I think a Eddie recharge sounds very lazy, but who knows? Maybe it's what we need or some shit. I don't. Again, it's too hard to tell. But do you have any like words for anyone looking to pick up Zato this season? Maybe they just think, oh well, I like the Eddie swap. Maybe they want to play a character with, you know, some good offense. Any, I guess, not like a beginner guide, but any like tips to anyone that would be looking to pick up the character this season, like any way, like specific way you should be approaching the character with the changes?
Well, I mean, you know, because obviously we spent a lot of time like dooming about him, but like for the most part, and this applies to like every fighting game, is like for like 99% of the player base, it doesn't matter how good a character is, because you're not at the level where like the character's strength matters. Like when we're talking about viability, we mean in terms of like being able to like pick Zato and like win a tournament like comfortably. So if you want to learn Zato, I think he's like one of the coolest characters in Strive, at least. And he's, I think, really good, a good archetype to try and learn, to like challenge yourself if like you're not used to things like negative edge, or just a character with his kind of play style. So like you can definitely try and learn him, and I don't think his gameplay has really, like we said, he's kind of stuck in the past, relatively speaking. That also means that you can go back and watch like older Zato footage, and with the exception of like the wall splat stuff, you can kind of take a lot of knowledge from that. It's just in the current version, he's a lot worse at it because
Yeah.
you know you have to stall for longer. You have to get more hits overall. But yeah, I mean, if you think he's cool, just play him. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter at the end of the day if you're just trying to improve as a player, because it'd take a pretty long time for you to get to the level where him being as currently bad as he is in the meta would matter.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well, that will end up doing you. Let me put I'll put Pep's, obviously, his Twitter. I'll put his Twitch as well. I remember he streamed like one time, like a long time ago, and then just never streamed again.
Yeah.
I'll put
Maybe one day I'll go back to it.
I'll put his Twitch up there in case he ever streams again. Any events that you're going to, maybe this year or next year that people can expect to see you at?
Unfortunately, just because I'm pretty busy with non-fighting game stuff currently, my most next likely event is the Arc World Tour qualifier, like LCQ. Because like with the way they did the tour this year, it's impossible for me to qualify. I don't have the time to travel
Yeah.
to all these different tournaments.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's looking like the LCQ. And you know, by that time we're gonna have the new patch by then. Venom's also gonna be out, so if I like him and how he plays, I'll probably be playing him there too. Hopefully if Zato gets better buffs, I'll be like, you know, maybe I like quad main characters like
Yeah.
you know, Johnny, Oscar, Venom, and Zato. Like,
But for now, the Oscar for now.
yeah, I still really, and like Oscar's like, I just have a lot of fun playing Oscar just because like you can do so much cool stuff with him. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by, Pep. I'll let you go for now, and that will do it for the video. Again, your socials will be on here, and yeah, thank you.